Pollicy is a civic tech company that works at the intersection of data, design, and technology. We employ the user-centered design to ensure that users of services work with service providers to ensure that they are involved in decision making, they are involved in development of the intervention and services that they are going to utilize. This project is about assessing the effect of ICT policies and strategies that have been put in place by the government of Uganda to promote access and use of ICTs and assistive devices among persons with disabilities.
Currently, we have policies that are supporting issues related to persons with disabilities. For example, we have Disability Act amendment that was in 2006, amended in 2020, that supports issues related to accessibility. We also have the UN Conventions on Rights of Persons with Disabilities that also protects the rights of persons with disabilities. And when you looked at the action points that the Ministry of Gender has taken, for example, we're seeing the ministry has come up with the National Comprehensive Action Plan for persons with disabilities. And issues of accessibility in ICT inclusive is also involved.
I developed myself into the area of ICT because there was a big challenge for students with vision impairment to access education without ICT. While I was a student at Chambogo University, I used to share a room with one of the visually impaired students. He taught me all the basics, all the skills that he needs to have to access education. In 2015, there was an organization through UNAB, Uganda National Association for the Blind, from Dutch. They had a workshop. I was one of the participants for more skills in the area of ICT for the blind. So I emerged to be one of the best participants because I was doing it with passion.
This project is being implemented by Pollicy and supported by Digital Human Rights Lab and GIZ.
In ICT with women with disabilities, in I think 2019, Nogudu introduced facilitation of transport refund to our beneficiaries through use of mobile money. And that thing was a very, very, very big challenge. Few women with disabilities had mobile phones, and it was very hard for them to get their transport refund. They would put the names of their family members, a spouse, an in-law. Such money sometimes would not reach. Then we started sensitizing them and creating awareness of the need for them to own mobile phones.
We are implementing this project in Northern Uganda, in Acholi region, in 4 districts, that is Gulu, Omoro, Nwoya, and Padel. We have so far done several activities on this project that include a desktop review that we did to assess the situation on policies and strategies that have been put out by the government and several other stakeholders to promote access and utilization of ICTs and assistive technology among persons with disabilities. We did a data collection here in the 4 districts. We found out that physical disability is most prevalent among the categories of disabilities in this region. Most of the persons with disabilities have low levels of education, and most of them have attained primary level education. And then we also found out that most of the persons with disabilities are largely unemployed. And the high prevalence of disability in this region compared to other regions in Uganda, like Central and Western, is largely attributed to the insurgency that happened here in Northern Uganda that left so many people because there were landmines that were placed in different places. So they left people with disabilities, especially the physical disability. They lost limbs in terms of legs, in terms of arms. Most of the persons with disabilities are not knowledgeable about the existing policies and strategies that have been put in place by government and other stakeholders and other partners to promote their access and utilization of ICTs and assistive technology.
We have been supporting people with disabilities since 1992. Currently, when it comes to digital and assistive devices, it is a big challenge. So GDP has been working in areas of providing assistive devices to people with disabilities. We have so far given 80 wheelchairs and crutches to people with disabilities in 4 districts of Gulu. So one of the challenges that we are facing currently when it comes to including people with disabilities in using digital technologies, it is mostly when it comes to education, because most of our people with disabilities, they lack the knowledge and skills of using those equipments.
And that is one thing that we would like to work on as Pollicy and other partners. So specifically for this project, the strategies and policies focusing on ICT and assistive technology for persons with disabilities, they have largely not been implemented, but they are there in the documents. The Ministry of Gender developed something, Ministry of ICT, NITA, they have all developed strategies to enable persons with disabilities to access and use ICTs. But most of the things are still in the pipeline. They have not yet been implemented. But remember, the problem is growing. Every day there are innovations which are coming up. Every day people need to live, they need to get employed, they need to use services. And when policies are in place and are working, they enable them to live that kind of life. What is not yet being done? The barriers that were highlighted in our research include the cost. Cost of the devices, cost of ICTs is high. For Whitecan goes for 60,000.
The latest Braille embosser, Braille Box V5, costs around 68 million Uganda shillings. The Braille embosser, Index Everest V5, it goes for 30 million. So you realize that it's also quite expensive. When you come to Fusion software, that's a combination of JAWS and Zoom text. You must part with 6.5 million to get one license, one user license. Usually a laptop costs 2 million, but the software is expensive than the laptop. When you come to Career Reader goes for 11 million Uganda shillings. Apart from the cost of this equipment, even there is cost involved in repairing and maintenance. A case in point, I had to be taken to Sweden and the Netherlands to learn how to repair all these devices in the center. The costing and the maintenance make it hard for learners with vision impairment to access these information. If we can give skills to teachers on how to have basic maintenance in these areas, then we shall be helping our learners with vision impairment in the schools.
Then the other barrier that was highlighted is that persons with disabilities do not have sufficient knowledge on available assistive devices. They were not aware of which ones are available and also who are the service providers for these devices.
The specialized services we have here are essential in facilitating the learning of students and other persons with disabilities. However, many people do not know that these services exist here. They knew former UNICE, but when former UNICE was merged into Chambogo University, that visibility disappeared. UNICE is the former Uganda National Institute of Special Education. During UNICE, parents would come here with their children for assessment and guidance and referrals. And so it is important that together with all the stakeholders, we do some marketing.
In Gulu High School, I'm a teacher and I'm handling religious education and entrepreneurship, both with the visual impairment students, and all other learners. In the Gulu High School, we so far have students with visual impairment who are being trained on ICT information, not only the basic, but most of the knowledge that they are supposed to get. We also have some few challenges that we have encountered, and one of it is that there are other devices that we needed, but we cannot get them because of its being expensive and also difficult to get, especially like smart braille, which would not disturb us with the issue of braille papers, because for it saves work inside. And even scientific calculators. As I talk now, we have kindness who are supposed to do their work, but they don't have scientific talking calculators, which make working with other functions become so hard. And with all this, I believe that if we happen to get this, it will either improve, not only improve the knowledge, but also will improve their capability, and also it will make them to feel strong and being embraced in the community.
Knowing very well that I had challenges with the paying attention to what is in class, especially what the lecturer was going to say, struggled until I found an hearing aid. That was very expensive. It costed me about 800,000 shillings to acquire just one hearing aid. Right now, my challenge with using an hearing aid is that the doctor tells me that it causes ear infection, because if I keep it in my ear for a very long time, sometimes it can cause pain. I have to remove it. I have to use an interpreter together with my hearing aid.
And so what do we intend to do? One is to look into the cost. If prices can be revised, because already the government does not tax these devices when they are being imported, such that they are put into or at a level where these persons can afford them, as well as maybe allowing them to pay in installments and something like that. But also they urge government and other partners to try and empower persons with disabilities so they can be able, economically, so they can be able to afford these devices. For instance, the government has come up with a program through the Ministry of Gender to see that they empower small groups of persons with disabilities. So far here in Gulu, I think for the last financial year, about 9 groups were given some funds. There is another program of the government which has come up, Emyoga. If it can also be integrated within the persons with disabilities so that they are economically empowered, because when they have that economic empowerment, they are able to afford to buy these devices. The other key recommendation was about creating awareness, raising awareness on the devices available on the market and the service providers. This was like we work with a disabled persons organization who are already using these devices to create awareness. Good enough, in our dissemination workshop, we came along with one of the service providers, and she talked about enabling services. She came along with some of the devices and showed them to the participants, which we know is going to create a very big impact between now and the next time we return to Gulu. The last key recommendation was to promote the work of disabled persons organizations and NGOs that have a stake in promoting access and use of assistive devices for persons with disability. If their work can be promoted, that they do not only concentrate on persons with disabilities who are within the urban areas or urban centers within the districts, but they spread out to the rural areas, reach the grassroots, tell them about the existing policies, the devices that are available on the market, also identify trainers who can train these people. It will be a very good thing. They will do the advocacy. We will finally see that persons with disabilities are being lifted.
The fact that we have modern equipment should be an opportunity to be exploited by schools, by education providers, by parents, and by government to provide access to learning through ICT to all students.
And that is our aim as far as this project is concerned. We want to see that persons with disabilities can live independently. Someone does not need to hire a guide to cross the road, to go for a workshop. They can just use their white cane with a sensor or without, but it will help them and lead them to where they were going. When they reach the workshop, they have the gadgets to be able to listen, so that even if they are not seeing, but they can attend the workshop because they have assistive devices to assist them to listen and participate actively, just like the others in the workshop. So we want to promote access and use by way of making sure that the recommendations that we got in this research are implemented. And then we see that persons with disabilities are living independently. Through radio talk shows, we can also raise awareness, because radio, from our findings, about 74% of persons with disabilities own radios and use them. So we hope that when we do that, we will achieve our goal of not leaving any disabled person behind. I finally would like to thank our partner Nudipu for being there with us and supporting us in penetrating the disabled persons society here in the 4 districts. I would like to thank and appreciate Digital Human Rights Lab and GIZ for funding this project, and they are still funding us till the end.